It's the Denton Day Show. I am Denton Day. Another episode coming here on a Wednesday. We got a lot of things to get into. If this is your first time listening, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you are listening, and you can go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe there as well. You know, I was thinking, because I'm like trying to plan out this intro, right? And usually when I plan out this intro, I just fly by the seat of my pants. I have nothing planned. I hit record and then it's like, oh my God, we're recording. Let's intro this podcast. Should I start screaming? Yeah, I was going to be like, maybe I should be an energy guy. Maybe I should be an energy guy. My question is, do you have to scream to have good energy? It feels like everybody in radio and podcasting is screaming. What are y'all yelling about? I don't know when you're listening to this, but I don't need people screaming at me at various different points in my day. So I'm not going to do the screaming. I thought about it for like 2 seconds, then I thought about my neighbors. You know, they put up with me doing a 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. show at one point for a couple of months. I'm not going to make them put up with me screaming at 8:20 as I'm taping this on a Wednesday morning. So we're not going to do that. We got a great episode, though, of the Denton Day Show. We have a conversation with Dennis Vincey, who's a great producer at SiriusXM. And side note, I promise we are going to branch out and not just have my producer friends on as guests coming up in the near future, but we had to get Dennis on. He's a great dude, so we had a great conversation about a load of different topics, career sort of stuff, NCAA Tournament, New York Giants football, the Yankees, all of that. So that's something to look forward to coming to you on this episode. Hit me up on the Twitter machine at the Denton Day and subscribe on all platforms to the Denton Day podcast. Let's start with the NCAA Tournament and the NCAA Championship. It felt like, for me at least, it felt like this college basketball season absolutely flew by, and I don't really know why. You know, I've been covering this sport for a couple of years now, and for whatever reason, it felt like this year in particular, it went by faster. And it never really felt like I was able to get a full grip on the college basketball season, because I remember last year, and maybe last year is a bit of an anomaly because of the circumstances, and, you know, we had gotten robbed of 2020, so I was extra invested in 2021. I don't know what the particular reason was, but I just know last year I was more invested in college basketball than I was this year. But I say all of that to say I was satisfied with the way that the NCAA tournament played out. I think it gets a thumbs up as far as I'm concerned. I'm trying my best to not be somebody that's overly critical about things that don't need to be overly criticized. And I think the NCAA tournament, it was put on well. There were no looming issues. And we got what we wanted in the Final Four, which was a bunch of blue bloods. And the only issue that I had with the NCAA tournament is the fact that our championship game felt like it was in the Final Four between UNC and Duke. But at the same time, Kansas and UNC in the actual championship game was the most watched championship game on cable television that we've ever had. So it worked. It worked. If you're wondering what does a championship rating in college basketball look like compared to a championship rating in college football, I will answer that question by letting you know there's a reason we pay so much attention to college football. Because the ratings weren't even close. It was like 10 million down. Like just something ridiculous. But it was still a good rating for college basketball, and the game itself was good. It featured a team coming back from nearly 20 points of a halftime deficit to winning the game. And I think that's something that needs to be celebrated. Is it an instant classic? No. I think of an instant classic as something that really comes down to the wire, potentially a buzzer-beating shot. I don't think you need a buzzer beater to be an instant classic, but I felt like in the final minute or two of the game between UNC and Kansas, UNC wasn't coming back. And I think if it's going to be an instant classic, there needs to be some element of until the final buzzer sounds, both teams have a chance. And once we got to the final minute or so, it felt like that was wrapped up and that was done. Once Bacot rolled his ankle, it felt like the game was over. Because Caleb Love wasn't playing well, which is ironic because we talked a lot about him on Monday's episode of the Denton Day Show. He wasn't playing well. His NCAA tournament is sporadic. That's what we talked about on Monday. How is his particular NCAA tournament going to be looked back on years to come from now? It's going to be looked back on sporadic. If he would have gone out there and dropped 30-plus points, maybe not 30, we'll say 20, couple of threes, and UNC wins, it's looked at as one of the great NCAA tournaments we've ever seen, particularly from a guard's perspective. But he didn't do that. UNC in the second half, their style of play caught up to them. Kansas has depth. Kansas has a deeper rotation than UNC, which isn't very difficult because UNC doesn't play a lot of guys. And that came back around to bite them in the second half of the championship game. I mean, you had guys looking like they were about to die, throwing up on the floor. They say he got the wind knocked out of him. You didn't get the wind knocked out of you. I mean, one of you had the wind knocked out of you, you start throwing up. When you get the wind knocked out of you, you're grasping for air. You're not throwing up. I mean, maybe I've never had the wind knocked out of me that bad, but I feel like the next step after getting the wind knocked out of you is getting knocked out, not throwing up. So that certainly wasn't the case. The problem with UNC is, listen to these minutes for their starters. 38 for Bacot, and he rolled his ankle. So if he doesn't roll his ankle, that's potentially 39-40. Brady Manning played 36. RJ Davis played the full 40. He did not rest. Caleb Love played 36. Leaky Black played 30. Johnson played 18. And then McCoy came in for 2 minutes as a little bit of reinforcements, if you will. UNC ran a 6-guy rotation, which worked to get them there. And I guess that then brings you to the conversation. Do you stray away from what got you to the championship, or do you attempt to just fight through? They chose the latter of those two options, attempted to fight through, and it bit them in the rear end. Whereas Kansas had 9 guys log minutes. Now, some of these dudes aren't playing a ton of minutes, right? But like Remy Martin's coming off the bench giving you 21. He's giving you 21 minutes, and he played great in those 21 minutes. As I look up and down this box score, I don't think there is a player on the UNC Tar Heels that I would describe as having a good championship game. I think Bacot played well. He goes for 15 and 15. So it's hard to be like, yeah, he sucked when he went for 15 and 15, but he was 3 of 13 in 38 minutes. He just capitalized at the foul line. If you're going to have a good game, I need you to at least be 6 of 13. And if you're 6 of 13, you win. UNC wins if Armando Bacot is 6 of 13. Brady Manick only shot 8 times. Their superstar lumberjack only shot the ball 8 times. Whereas Caleb Love shot the ball 24 times. There need to be more of a balance there. I think it's just the way that UNC played. It finally caught up to them, and Kansas was able to take advantage. I do want to touch on this because I saw people on Twitter, and this was immediately following the championship game, and that's always a dangerous spot. People are in their emotions. They're reacting to bets lost. Maybe you're a fan, what have you. The Bacot injury really doesn't need to be debated. I've seen the video of the floorboard. Unless you are an expert on how a basketball floor is constructed, I don't need your opinion on the floorboard for the video. I don't think he rolled his ankle because of the floorboard. I think he rolled his ankle because he'd played 38 minutes on a bad ankle. deflection of the floorboard in that video isn't a great look, but that's also not completely out of the norm. I was looking on Twitter, and I shouldn't have done this. Like, part of this is on me. I should have just turned the phone off. But I'm looking on Twitter, seeing all these experts, but the problem is it's the so-called experts, not the actual experts. You know, the people that are like, well, you know, I played 1 year of freshman basketball, 2 years on JV, and then I managed my senior year varsity team. I know a basketball floor. Shut up. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear from you because you don't know a basketball floor. I don't think the floor caused his injury. I think his injury was caused by the fact that he played 38 minutes after rolling his ankle against Duke. And eventually the body gives. I know we look at athletes as if they're superhuman, and some of them do seem to have superhuman qualities, but they're not superheroes. That's literally just a kid. Like, he's Armando Bacot, for all intents and purposes, is just a kid. He's legally an adult, but he really isn't. He's really not. He's still in college. We look at guys in college as if they are still just children. So he doesn't have this superhuman quality where his ankle is just indestructible. So that's what caused his injury. But that wasn't the highlight. Really the highlight of the game as far as I'm concerned. And obviously that's not a highlight, that's more of like a low light, but you get what I'm saying. The thing that I needed but did not know that I need was Mark Emmert being on stage to deliver the trophy to the Kansas Jayhawks. I don't particularly like Bill Self. I think he's just a more likable Will Wade. And the fact that Kansas hasn't gotten punished for the bagmen that took place in 2017. I mean, that investigation for Kansas, I had just graduated college. I'm 26 going on 27 now. I just graduated college at like 22 years old when this Kansas investigation started with the FBI. So I don't love Bill Self, but man, it was great to see him on stage with Mark Emmert. And to see Mark Emmert just completely fold on stage. He called Kansas the Kansas City Jayhawks. You are supposedly the most powerful man in the NCAA. You have been looking at Kansas with the benefit and help of the FBI. You called in the feds to help investigate Kansas, and you don't even know where they're from? You don't even know that Kansas is in Lawrence, not Kansas City. Those two cities, they're close, but they're really not that close. They're like 30, 40 miles away. For a comparison, that's about the same distance as Baltimore and Washington, D.C., and I promise you, if you've been to either or both of those, you know those cities are completely different. So Mark Emmert is not getting off the hook because Kansas City and Lawrence are less than an hour away from each other. He is not getting off the hook. It makes so much sense now, after seeing that, as to why certain elements of the NCAA are just a complete train wreck. Because the guy that is leading them isn't a leader. He looked like a scared child up there. It's a scared child afraid to confront his bully, but in reality, Mark Emmert is actually the bully. He's the one that's coming down enforcing these rules, and it doesn't really seem to be a just system in his enforcement of these rules. He is the bully, but he looked like the scared child on stage confronting his bully, which I think adds a little bit more sprinkles on the top of Kansas's championship Sunday. Maybe an extra brownie in the damn Sunday, because they made Mark Emmert look like an absolute fool. And what should scare Kansas fans is that maybe Mark Emmert is now going to take this out on them more than he should. I joked on Twitter after the game that, oh, don't worry, UNC fans, this title isn't even going to count. But I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility for Mark Emmert and the NCAA to strip Kansas of this title. They're investigating them for something that took place in 2017, but we know how these investigations play out. It's not fair, but it is what it is. You investigate something that happened years ago, and then you punish them currently. And the way that you punish them currently is postseason bans. It's happened to every program that's run into the NCAA. Something happened years ago. You ban them now for the postseason. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Mark Emmert to be on his tyrannical dictatorship kind of vibe saying, well, we should have thrown him a postseason ban like 2 years ago, which Adoy would have made them not eligible in 2022, so that championship shouldn't count. The recruits might not have been from 2017, but we dumb. Give us the trophy. I could absolutely see Mark Emmert doing that. That was also the first time I tried to do a Goofy impression. I hope that worked. If you're offended by that, don't be. I was just trying something on the fly. We're having a good time. But I could see Mark Emmert doing that. I don't understand, and this makes me so upset. Why is it that as we look across the greater landscape of sports in this country, collegiate and professional, but they're basically the same thing, why is it that all of the leaders that govern these leagues and these associations outside of Adam Silver, why are they all completely batshit insane and absolutely terrible at their job? I didn't need to know that Mark Emmert was bad at his job on Monday. I already knew that. That's why name, image, and likeness is a mess. They haven't figured anything out because he was scared, and then he relied on the federal government, and the federal government's like, yo, y'all been running some very shady business, and now they're under attack. The NCAA is again. All of that is the fault of Mark Emmert because he didn't want to give up power. He's a scared boy that's wielding this gigantic staff, only he only uses it when he's not face-to-face. So it's a really big staff. You know how big a staff got to be able to use that damn thing when you're not face-to-face? Big-ass staff. And it's a staff. It's not what he got going on in his body. It is completely separate from his body. He can just pick up the staff and then wield it. I'm not praising Mark Emmert in that regard. We're not doing it. We're not praising Mark Emmert. Congratulations to Kansas, though. Really, congratulations to me for betting the under, because I saw the line, it was like 151.5, and that's so many points in college basketball. So I'm going to take all the praise there. I bet UNC on the money line. We won't talk about that. But shout out to the under for hitting. I'm very pleased that the under hit. So that wraps up our college basketball coverage for the Denton Day Show, at least until next season. It's time to shift gears and jump into our conversation with Dennis Vinci. And I just lied to you because Dennis and I talked about college basketball. But this conversation is great. Dennis and I have known each other for a couple of years. He produces at ESPNU Radio on Sirius XM. He also has a great podcast, the Matt and Dennis Pod. Go ahead and check that out. It's available on all platforms. But let's now get into the conversation with a great Dennis Vinci.